The British people are about to have practiced upon them a trick even cruder and more shameless than that by which they were cheated out of their inheritance of parliamentary self-government in the first place when we acceded to the European Economic Community.
We fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Moment. We're on weekdays, 11:45 Eastern. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. So I wanted to do this piece on Nigel Farage. Britain is facing a very unusual situation for that country. We are clearly starting to see a real split in their politics. It took Brexit to finally show that chasm, but now it's clear for all to see. That break is not just in the Conservative Party, but it is also in the Labour Party. The split across party lines and cultures and beliefs. The common thread is that the parties stand for Britain leaving the EU. I'm going to play you several clips. I want to give you a flavour of what Nigel Farage faces every single day. Not unlike on a smaller scale that of President of the United States, Donald Trump. We will start off with the Brexit Party's press conference introduction. All of these links to follow will be on my site. Next, we'll follow up with a piece from the BBC Sunday Politics, and our final piece will be from Sky News. Here's the first clip.
The speed at which we're growing is demonstrated by the fact that even since that was produced overnight, we've got an extra 3,000 supporters. We're gaining this support without question. People want change, and our intention is very clear. The two-party political system has failed in this country. It's failed Britain, it's failed Brexit, and it's failing democracy. We aim, without question, to win these European elections comprehensively. And there's no doubt that the Brexit Party candidates, with their skills, their achievements, their successes, their can-do, make-do attitude, is without question the highest quality list of candidates that has ever stood for public office in this country in a generation. And one of the consistent features of those candidates is that they are almost all experienced in negotiation. And we have a very clear message which we're setting out in this pledge card that we are announcing and giving out this morning. A very clear message for voters and to Westminster. Firstly, a vote for the Brexit Party is a clear vote for a WTO Brexit. No ifs, no buts. Secondly, a vote for the Brexit Party is a vote that our elected MEPs should play a significant role in the future negotiating team. We will demand such a role because we will be the party with the biggest, the most clear democratic mandate to be involved in those negotiations. And that will be a mandate from the people. Westminster MPs were elected in 2017, and that both main parties stood on a manifesto to leave the single market and to leave the customs union. Over 80% of the population voted for those manifestos. Westminster have had their chance in these negotiations, and the truth is, they've blown it. I first called for the negotiating team to be changed in December 2017, when it was quite clear that they were making a complete shambles of it. Instead, the civil service, government and MPs, they've messed up. They've carried on with the most shambolic negotiation this country's ever seen, and it's led to a complete and utter humiliation where our Prime Minister has not once but twice had to write begging letters to overseas leaders. Basically, they've had the wrong people, inexperienced in negotiation, and a civil service that don't believe in what they're negotiating for. And let's be honest, We in the Brexit Party stand for basic, common sense, competent politics. And it is basic common sense that you should always have people negotiating who actually believe in what they're negotiating for. So I repeat, ladies and gentlemen, a vote for the Brexit Party is a vote for a WTO Brexit. It's also a vote for our elected MEPs to play a significant role in the future negotiating team. Our voters will expect and demand nothing less. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to hand over to the leader of our party, Nigel Farage.
Richard, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Very strange. It's rather like a phony election, isn't it? Everyone pretends it's not going to happen, and yet it is going to happen in 16 days' time. But we keep being told, well, maybe there'll be a deal, maybe the elections will be stopped. Well, just remember this. Millions of postal votes have already been delivered. A very large number of people have already voted. Surely our government couldn't rob us of another vote, could they? No, I don't think so. And I think these elections will take place in 16 days' time. And as Richard's made clear, as our pledge card that we're launching today also makes clear, we are aiming for a clean break Brexit. That is what people want. To leave the European Union, to leave the single market, to leave the customs union, the European Court of Justice, and to get on with the rest of our lives. That's our message. That's what we're campaigning on. We want democracy respected, and we want promises, repeated promises, to be kept. My own view is that throughout all of this, over the course of the last 3 years, our political class have behaved despicably, and that behaviour is getting worse by the day. And I say that as Mrs May's negotiating team and Mr Corbyn's negotiating team are no doubt in Downing Street as we talk, trying to put together some new formula. What they're actually trying to do is to form a coalition against the people. And if you think that the public are angry at Brexit not being delivered, this will make them furious. A customs union, alignment with single market rules is very clearly not what we voted for. And I've come to the view that actually just winning these European elections, well, that'll be great, but it won't be enough. And even if we get forced into having to fight a second referendum and we win it by a bigger margin, which I certainly believe we would, I'm not even convinced then that this government and this parliament would actually deliver the will of the people. So be in no doubt, for us, these European elections on May the 23rd are but a first step, and we intend, as the slogan says, to change politics for good. MPs for the last 3 years have had no real electoral fear. So to quote Anne Widdecombe, our lead candidate in the South-West and someone known for plain speaking, Anne has said that either we leave or they leave. And that really is the message coming from this morning. We don't know when the next general election is going to be. It could happen sooner than we think. What we do know is that on June the 6th, there will be a by-election in Peterborough. We're going through a candidate selection process at the moment. We haven't yet selected. We've got some very difficult choices to make, given that nominations close at 4 o'clock on Thursday. We will be contesting that by-election. We will have a first-class candidate. The party is only 4 weeks old, so we don't exactly have much data in Peterborough to go on, but we will give it our best shot. But let me tell you what we are doing today. And as of 11 o'clock this morning, our website added a new page, so you can now go to www.thebrexitparty.org/candidates, and we are, as of today, recruiting candidates to fight the next general election. We want 650 men and women We're looking for 650 men and women, and we want people with real-world experience, people who either in civic life or business life have got some achievements under their belt. It will be a very new kind of politics. We will, over the course of the next few weeks, begin the vetting process, and it'll be rigorous, and we'll begin the interviewing process, and we'll start allocating people towards seats. We already have 1,250 applicants who applied for the European elections, and we'll obviously be asking them to consider whether they want to go forward for this as well. I anticipate thousands of people coming forward, but I feel confident that if there was a general election that took place any time from September onwards, we would be ready to fight it. How are we going to fund it? People keep asking me, how are we going to fund it? Well, as Richard has said, we're now up to 88,000 registered supporters, so well over £2 million has come into the party online over the course of the first few weeks. Over 90% of our funding has come in £25 sums from members of the public, although I think that may be about to change. And I say that because there are now a few much bigger donors, traditionally donors to the Conservative Party, who we are now in conversation with, because they understand and realise that to fight a general election seriously, we're going to need big bucks. So with that is perhaps work in progress. No one in the country knows more than me how difficult it is under the first past the post system to break the two-party stranglehold. You know, I quite well remember 2015, 4 million votes and not really very much in return. But I would say this, that if a clean break Brexit is not delivered, then my view would be that the Brexit Party in a general election would get many, many more votes than the 4 million I managed to get as leader of UKIP all those years ago. We're getting ready. We've had enough. We will not be lied to and deceived anymore by our political class. We've got a huge number of people in this country out there who sympathise with us. They're Conservative voters, they're Labour voters. In many cases, they're people who voted in that referendum who'd never voted before in their lives. And I would just finish with this message. Don't underestimate us. We know what we're doing, and we are going to change politics for good.
Hello again. Now, he said he'd gone into semi-retirement from politics, but Nigel Farage is back, leading a brand new party, and he joins us now. Thanks very much for being on the programme. It feels right to start with those local election results. Of course, the Brexit Party wasn't standing, but it seems like the conclusion, drawn by both Labour and the Conservatives, is that the public want them to do a deal. What do you think would be the consequences?
I don't agree with that. What the public want is to leave the European Union. You know, we were promised we'd leave on the 29th of March. 500 MPs voted for it. The Prime Minister told us over 100 times we were leaving on that date. The public don't want a deal, and certainly not the deal that Mrs May is talking about this morning, you know, permanent customs union, alignment with single market rules. The public want to leave and for us to get on with the rest of that of our lives.
What do you think the consequences would be if Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn did push forward some kind of customs union proposal?
I think if they push forward with this, it will be seen as a coalition of politicians against the people, and I think millions of people would give up on both Labour and the Conservatives. I really do.
So it could be almost like a realignment of
this would be the
politics.
Final betrayal. I mean, frankly, if May signs up to this, I can't see the point of the Conservative Party even existing. You know, what's it for?
I mean, you're using some quite loaded language here, the final betrayal. And you're also talking about what the public want. I mean, the problem with this, isn't it, is that people want different things. There are clearly some people who support your party who would like us to leave with no deal. But there is also a lot of people who would like to see a deal or perhaps even to remain in the EU.
If you look at the polling,
you've got to bring people together, surely.
In the last 2 months, there's been a remarkable shift in polling in this country. You know, leaving on WTO terms with no deal is now the most popular option by far.
But it's not a majority, is it?
Oh, if you offer people the choice, you know, should we stay and have a second referendum or leave on WTO terms? WTO terms has a majority.
But they're not the only choices, are they?
Every single region of
They're
England
not
and
the
Wales,
only
apart from
choices,
London.
are they?
Well, they are. Either we stay or we leave, and that's really what it's all about. And I honestly think if May and Corbyn put together a deal where we leave in name only, but we're stuck inside all of the European Union structures, then I think the realignment of British politics will happen even more quickly. I genuinely believe that SW1, the Westminster bubble, not just the politicians, but much of the commentariat too, are underestimating the desire for change out there in this country.
Let's look at some of the polling, shall we? You, of course, didn't stand, as we said, in the local elections, but I have to say the Brexit Party is looking as if it is going to do extremely well in the European elections. Now, this is the latest polling from YouGov. You're up there on 30%. I mean, what are you expecting to happen?
Well, I think that we've clearly done very, very well as a very new party. We've done well with the UKIP vote. That's almost disappeared. We've done well with the Conservative vote. I think the significance of what you saw on Thursday was...
Come on, what will be a good night in the European elections?
Well,
I want to pin you down.
Let me just finish. The significance of Thursday night is we saw the first cracks in the Labour vote. You know, the Labour Parliamentary Party are very, very Remain. Lots of them pushing for a second referendum and to Remain. But there are 5 million voters out there, Labour voters, who voted Leave, particularly in the Midlands, the North and South Wales. And I'd love between now and polling day to have a debate with Jeremy Corbyn about this, because people are very confused as to what Labour's standing for.
Is that a challenge?
Well, it is if you want, it is a challenge, absolutely. I think if we can dig in to the Labour vote, then we can surprise even ourselves how well we do on May 23rd.
That polling was not looking very good for UKIP, was it? As you mentioned, down on 4%.
Yeah.
When you see that, do you feel kind of sad, or do you actually feel secretly, a little bit pleased?
26 years of my life, I was with UKIP. I was the leader, the chairman, the national organiser. For me, leaving UKIP was a difficult thing to do. But now, frankly, it's past its sell-by date. It serves no purpose. It's done. It's gone.
I mean, Tommy Robinson is an advisor to UKIP.
Yeah.
One of its MEP candidates has used the N-word, other offensive language in videos. I mean, how would you define racism?
Oh, well, in the case of that particular candidate, it's just outright abuse. Offensive abuse. And there's no doubt they've gone in that direction. Frankly, we won't even be discussing them after this election.
Is UKIP a racist party? Or at risk of becoming one?
I think that it's attracted certain individuals that I would never have allowed to join UKIP. OK, well, now let's talk about the Brexit Party, shall we? Who's funding you? Amazing. So we hit 85,000 yesterday, registered supporters, all paying £25. Work it out. We've raised, getting on for £2 million through individual people joining through our website. And I can't think that any other party in the UK has ever raise money like that. You've said in an interview previously that you've received one big donation. Oh, 160. Who's that from? Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, yes, I'm really going to tell you his name, aren't I?
Well, why not? Because
then you would all hound him.
This is the new transparent politics, isn't it?
And we'll be declaring it at the end of July.
So why don't you just tell me then?
I don't see why. I don't see why one individual... Well, I tell you what, if everybody else will, that's fine. But you know what will happen? If I tell you the name of this person, you will hound him, all of you. You'll be outside his house for the next 3 weeks. So no. And anyway, it's irrelevant. It's a small donation. It's a small donation of £100,000. We've raised, I repeat, nearly £2 million in £25 from individuals.
Doesn't he deserve some scrutiny?
And he'll get it all in good time. Who's funding Change UK?
Well, I'll be asking them.
Well, there you are.
There you go.
I promise we're going to go on to Nigel Farage, who was first elected to the European Parliament for the South East in 1999. He's running again this time as leader of the Brexit Party. He joins us now from Westram in West Kent. Nigel Farage, thank you very much for your time. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
You've said that you've come out of semi-retirement to lead this party. You've been an MP for the South East for 20 years on a decent salary, we estimate, of £90,000 recently. Did you really treat those 20 years and that salary as semi-retirement?
No, what I said was I was leader of a national party before, so rather than working 40 hours a week, I used to work 100 hours a week, and for the last couple of years, I've taken it a bit easier. I'd fully intended to leave the European Parliament. I'd done my 20 years because I was told by Theresa May 108 times that we were leaving on the 29th of March. That's what the country were told. We haven't left
on the 29th of March. We're now told we could be leaving by the 31st of October. Frankly, I don't trust this government or this Parliament to give us anything like the Brexit that people voted for once in a referendum, twice, of course, in a general election when various promises were made. And that's why I've set the Brexit Party up to fight for democracy. You know, what kind of country are we if we have the biggest democratic exercise in our history and it's not delivered? I want it delivered.
Theresa May has said we've got to do a deal. A lot of talk in today's newspapers about a deal possibly being done next week between Labour and the government. If there is a deal between Labour and the Conservatives, that means no European Parliament elections, or at the very least you probably wouldn't be able to take your seats. No chance possibly of that big triumph for you and your new party.
Let me just tell you something. If that deal is done between Corbyn and May, which means a permanent customs union and effectively staying part of the single market, that will be the ultimate betrayal of all the promises that were made to voters. And I promise you, millions of voters would leave both the Conservative and Labour parties in that eventuality. If this deal goes ahead, there will not be a Conservative party that frankly, even existing. And I think we could be very close now to politics realigning in this country.
What does the vote for your party, the Brexit Party, achieve? Is it just about sending a message to the other parties, especially the government? Is that it?
No, we want to change politics for good. For us, May the 23rd is the first step to a much more radical kind of politics than I've ever been involved in before. We have got to break the two-party system. They serve nobody but themselves anymore. We have an electoral system that's out of date, a House of Lords that is discredited, a Parliament no longer in touch with the people of this country, and we've seen a betrayal of that referendum result. So we want a radical transformation of British politics to make it directly accountable, to make it reflect who we are, and winning those European elections is a very good first step.
Well, help us out here and tell us a little bit about what your party believes in. It might be easy for you, as it looks perhaps from the polls, to win the European parliamentary elections on this single issue of the Brexit you say the people voted for. But there's no manifesto. There are no policy statements on a wide range of issues. If you run in for Westminster, which everyone's now sensing, and you've talked about putting candidates up, what is your party about except Brexit?
Well, let's be clear that this is not just another issue. This is about whether we are a democratic nation. It's about how the rest of the world sees us, and we will fight the European elections on democracy and trust. Beyond that, of course, we'll have a broad range of policies. But by the way, I will never use the word manifesto again in my life. The word manifesto has a word association with lies, because both the Labour and Conservative parties told us in 2017 they would deliver the Brexit we voted for, and they're not doing it. So I will call it in future a policy platform.
OK, but I mean, unless you have one, and you clearly don't at the moment, how can you possibly be held accountable? What do people think they're going to be voting for?
No. We are... Well, if we're not a democratic country, you may as well close Parliament down and not bother with elections. Just have us run by Mr Juncker and a few bureaucrats. This is the most important question we've asked ourselves in this country for 300 years. That is what May the 23rd is all about. Beyond that, we will talk about health, education and everything else.
You talk about whether or not we're a democratic country. Some might question whether yours is a really democratic party. UKIP's number one candidate in the South East, your old colleague Piers Walkup, said on this programme last week, Nigel Farage left UKIP because he wanted to be in complete control. He set up a party surrounded entirely by people selected by him. Is he right?
Well, I'm running this new party like a company. And it's so far, we're 4.5 weeks into our existence. We're topping the polls at 30%. I think we're getting it right.
You're running to be MEP for the South East again, but you're doing very well in the polls for the European elections. You spoke this morning on Sky of the prospect of a political realignment, and you've talked about it again on this programme. With the Tory party, as you see it, no longer fit for purpose, is this Nigel Farage who wants to be Prime Minister?
It's Nigel Farage that wants to radically change British politics. I've never had those kind of political ambitions. I'm not like sort of a Boris that dreamt from Oxford of being the PM. What I think I'm good at is making arguments and shifting the debate in the country. I think without my efforts, to be honest, I doubt we'd have had a referendum, and I now want to try and use whatever I'm good at to try and reshape British politics. I've no ambition myself to finish up at the top of it. But if I can be an agent for change, an agent for democracy, I'll be very happy to do that.
Nigel Farage, thank you for joining us.
Finally, I want to return to the BBC once again for an additional clip, which actually comes from Nigel Farage's own Twitter account. It's from a gentleman by the name of Andrew Marr. Now, this, in my mind, encapsulates exactly what's wrong with the people who control access to the mainstream media in the UK.
But as I say, here we are with one of the biggest changes in politics that's ever occurred, and you're not even interested.
Do you still
What's wrong with the BBC?
Do you still want to
What is wrong with the BBC?
Do you still want to roll back gun controls and reintroduce handguns to this country?
This sums it up. Do you know, I've been going around the country speaking at packed rallies every night. And do you know who's not there? The BBC. And from this line of questioning now, I can see why.
Do you still?
You're just not interested, are you?
Do you still feel uncomfortable with foreign languages being spoken on trains?
Let's talk about democracy. Let's talk about trust. Let's talk about competence in politics. This is ludicrous.
You still do.
This is absolutely ludicrous. I've never in my life seen a more ridiculous interview than this. You are not prepared to talk about what is going on in this country today. You're in denial. The BBC's in denial. The Tory and Labour parties are in denial. I think you're all in for a bigger surprise on Thursday week than you can even imagine. What is your question? What is the relevance of this?
I'm trying to work out who you are and where the Brexit Party, which wants to destroy the party system, is going.
You haven't asked about a single other member of the Brexit Party. You haven't commented on the fact we've got the most diverse list of candidates of any party fighting in this election.
From the Revolutionary Communist Party right through to the right.
That's worth discussing, isn't it? How have we managed to get left and right together? These things are really interesting to your viewers, not trawling back through a series of quotes from years ago.
You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab and email. We're also on Spotify. Just go to the podcast section and type Canadian Politics with a twist and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass on these links. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all our morning moments at Spreaker.com under A Radio. That's EHRADIO, A Radio, and click on the like button. And you can hear a review of our morning moments on WHBJ-DB, News, Talk, Radio on Spreaker.com. Join us and many others. And you can find all our podcasts and morning moments at aradio.wordpress.com. Click on the Morning Moments tab.